Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Ways and Means Committee. And I'm John Quincy. I'm the chair of the committee, and I'm joined today by Council members Yang, Palmisano, Council Vice President Glidden, and Council Member Johnson. Thanks for joining us. We're a quorum of the Ways and Means Committee, but this is a rather special occasion, so thank you for joining us. I think we'll begin with the first thing. It's on the presentation. It's from our Civil Rights Department. And this is a presentation on voter outreach and education plans as presented by the 2016 Urban Scholars. Cassidy, if you would join us and lead us through the agenda, that would be great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Council Vice President Glidden, members of the committee. My name is Cassidy Gardenier, and I'm the Assistant Director of the Civil Rights Department and the Director of the Urban Scholars Program. With me today, I have Aaron Brink Johnson and Brittany Rice, two of our program coordinators of Urban Scholars, as well as the 2016 cohort. We have representation from the state of Minnesota, Minneapolis Public Schools, the Parks, Greater Twin Cities United Way, Hennepin County, and of course the scholars who've been placed here this summer. I'm here today to introduce the summer-long Urban Scholars Voter Outreach and Engagement Plans. They will be making full recommendations to the city clerk's office this coming Wednesday, but we wanted to take an opportunity to share with you what these young, bright minds have been up to this summer. An overview of our schedule today. I'm going to give you just a brief history of the Urban Scholars Program. We will go over some of the changes that the 2016 programming has undergone this year. We will then have the scholars come up and present an overview of their plans, and then we will close with just some of the upcoming closing events for this year's cohort. Urban Scholars began in 2012 with 8 placements here at the city. Since then, our program has grown from a summer internship with some leadership opportunities to a premier leadership and professional development program with an internship. This year, we offered positions to almost 80 students from across the nation. Most of our scholars located here in the Twin Cities having some connection, either having gone to school here or currently are enrolled in one of our universities or colleges. While there's always been a focus on leadership development opportunities, this year my staff and I have created and crafted an evidence-based curriculum which works to develop culturally competent workforce for the future. So our current program is made up of, what makes it special is on top of the 32 hours that our scholars work inside departments here at the city and across our agencies, they attend 8 hours of professional and leadership development training every week. It's unique. We call it the Urban Scholars Leadership Institute, and it's made up of 4 key parts. Public speaking, where they go through a Toastmasters curriculum. Leadership development, which has been designed and implemented by the Wilder Foundation. We work with their community initiative as well as their Youth Leadership Institute. Professional development, which we've paired and partnered with Metropolitan State University and their Institute for Professional Development. And then small group work. And I'm sure as you are all well familiar, small group work is hard. Not very many people like it. And I think that it has a lot to do with that we don't teach how to operate in groups well. We believe that as a society, we don't spend enough time talking about how to work amongst and across differences. So diversity is more than numbers. It's about learning to communicate, problem solve, and listen to each other. And that's what our program focuses on. Not only are we equipping our scholars with how to be and show up in a professional work environment, we're teaching them how to operate in diverse settings. The scholars have spent the last 10 weeks working on group projects and practicing these skills, all the while crafting meaningful outreach and engagement plans for the city of Minneapolis and the city clerk's office. In 2016, the Urban Scholars partnered with the city clerk's office, thanks to the leadership of Casey Carl, and we have worked with Anissa Hollingshed and her team of community outreach specialists to develop voter outreach and engagement plans around 15 key topics, which our scholars would like to share with you today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first presenter, Ashlyn Crawford.
Great. Welcome to the podium. I just wanted to, before you begin, I just wanted to acknowledge that we've joined by committee member, Councilmember Bender, but also Councilmember Fry and Councilmember Goodman have joined us. So thank you very much for being a part of this. Welcome and thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Ashlyn Crawford, and I'm an urban scholar working at Minnesota Management and Budget for the state. With me, I have Sean Nguyen, who is working for the city of Minneapolis, and two other of our group members could make it today, Munir Vaughn and Tamir Galafi, who also work for the state of Minnesota. The main goal of our project was to increase voter outreach efforts for individuals without a permanent address. We decided to kind of focus our project around the Fifth Ward because it had the highest number of people without a permanent address and the lowest voter turnout in 2014. Our recommendation would be to create small print materials about the size of this little piece of paper, pinpointing the 5 main streets in the Fifth Ward: Xerxes, Broadway, Penn, Lindale, and Broadway. Penn, Xerxes, Broadway, Plymouth, and Lindale. So on the front of our plugger would be advertisement for individuals without a permanent address, encouraging them to register to vote. And then on the back would be a map of places that they can register with those 5 main streets in the Fifth Ward. So we think that that would probably be one of the most effective ways to get the word out to people without a permanent address to register to vote and just increase the voter turnout. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments are always welcome. I was hoping the Fifth Ward council member might have something to say. Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may just ask, and this is not be harsh, but why Xerxes? Because to me, Xerxes is on the fringe of Ward 5. It's close to the border of Golden Valley and Robbinsdale, and it's not a. It's not a major corridor per se. It's much more residential.
Well, I personally live on Xerxes, and I live on I live on the Golden Valley side, but I know it's one of the longer streets in Minneapolis. It stretches, from Plymouth all the way down into almost the Parkway. So we just figured, since we're, hitting the other really large streets further into the Fifth Ward, we should kind of go on the outskirts and try to gather those people who are not as close to those streets.
Thank you, Councilmember. I was wondering I'm sorry to keep making you go back and forth. What do you think about the language? Does this just be printed in English, or would you think these cards might be available in other languages?
Considering the ward that we are trying to target, I guess English might be the main language, but of course we would, make it available to all members of the community who live in the Fifth Ward. It's very diverse, and we would make it available to everyone who lives in that community.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions?
Not seeing any. Thanks so much for your help. Hi.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Lily Benowitz, and I'm working this summer in regulatory services in the city of Minneapolis. I would like to start by presenting my group members. First, Adrian Benjamin is working in government affairs at the Minnesota Department of Commerce this summer. Lee Gagazian is working in CPED on single-family housing at the city of Minneapolis. And finally, Sam Wandamu is working in the health department on family and maternal housing, health at the city of Minneapolis. We'd love to present to you today about our proposal to engage residents of homeless shelters in the city. In doing our research on this topic, we discovered that one of the main reasons that individuals living in shelters do not vote is because it's difficult for them to get a staff member of those shelters to vouch for their place of residence at the shelter. And this is because they oftentimes have many other responsibilities that take precedent. So making that available, making that more accessible for both the shelter staff and the residents was our main concern. We propose to build a partnership between the city, shelters, and nonprofits to share the responsibility of helping residents register to vote. Through this partnership, we will distribute materials and instructions to shelters in order to take as much stress off the shelter staff and register as many residents as possible to vote in November. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
I imagine there might be a couple questions. First of all, can you tell me how many individuals can you vouch for if you're a shelter staff person? Say you're at Stevens Shelter and you work there and you're going to vouch for someone. How many individuals can you vouch for?
I don't believe that there's a limit. I think it's mostly between the shelter staff saying that they do live there. So I think that they can vouch for all of their residents.
Correct.
But that would be something to look into further.
And I was wondering, is this only on election day, or do you have an option for having sheltered guests register to vote during an early voting period or no excuse absentee? How does that happen?
Yeah. So we were actually focusing on pre-registration just because voting day can be really hectic and that could go through election day. One of the main tactics that we wanted to use is that shelter staff can write a letter on their letterhead vouching for the residents. And so that would be the way that they could do that. Is they could bring that letter to the voting station and they could vote that, or they could register that way.
Good. Thank you. And this would all be at the same polling location, I would assume, on election day, if you're in that precinct, right?
Mhm.
That's where that's located. And then early voting or other things could be done at the more centralized polling location.
Correct.
Great. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions, comments? Okay, not seeing any.
Great.
Thank you very
so
much.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Council Vice President, and members of the committee. My name is Frida Alvarez, and I am currently an urban scholar with the state of Minnesota in the Department of Employment and Economic Development. I would like to start by introducing my project team. Iftu Yoya from the city of Minneapolis in the Civil Rights Department, Eloa Franca Verona with the state of Minnesota in the Department of Commerce, and Brenda Sanchez Murillo with the city of Minneapolis in Animal Control and Care. Today we are presenting on voting after a felony brochure. The recommendation our team has decided to put forward is a brochure that educates ex-felons on their voting rights. This idea is low maintenance, low cost, and will increase accessibility of information, resulting in reaching a larger audience. Thanks. Any questions?
Let me check. I see one. Council Vice President Glidden has a question.
Yeah, I just, thanks for this. Several years ago, I was part of an effort at the city where, sometimes these things kind of ebb and flow, but similar effort to focus on educating people on their rights and what does it mean to be off paper and all these complicated topics. Did you have also a plan of partners, or how were you going to get these pieces of paper to the right people?
Yes, so we have a whole plan. So our sponsor is Queen, and she does presentations currently at like Turning Point or other centers that focus on these individuals. And so we decided to use this brochure as an asset to her presentations. And then we were also thinking of having other brochures too, like the election process and how that works, but we wanted to specifically focus on one thing. So for right now, it's just what their rights are on voting, but we would like to see other possible brochures, for that easy accessibility of information and getting it out there. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
Chair Quincy and council members, I'm actually going to invite our team up because a part of our proposal requires that we have props. And this is Daniel and Sochi, and my name is Bo. And our project is called One Minneapolis, a Game of Civic Engagement. While commonalities exist, awareness of diversity within our Southeast Asian community is very important. And so via a card game, which Sochi has, it's an opportunity for government personnel in Southeast Asian to be in community with one another, to teach and to learn from the diversity that exists within our community, as well as what Daniel also has is a movable, a cultural icon that is called the Sao, which is iconic of his community, which is Hmong. And I also have a iconic piece, which is Angkor Wat, which is where my cultural community is from. It's in Cambodia. And so it is our hope that through the civic engagement literacy that Daniel has created and we came up together, is that if each of the cultural pieces will then move towards the center here and through the civic literacy process, with the hopes of moving to one city, one community towards a prospering community. Thank you. Do you have any questions for us?
Beautiful. Thank you. I heard Councilmember Yang click in.
Could I ask, how do you play?
I'm sorry?
How do you play? How do you play the game?
play the game?
Oh, how do we play the game? I'm sorry. I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous that I'm having a hard time hearing. So basically, there are multiple categories to our questions. And so what we have is it's a card game. So we'll have multiple cards, each with varying degree of difficulty. And so we'll have a question and there's an answer on the bottom. And then each time we'll have different communities. So each time community members come, they can actually Daniel came up with the title of your starting community. So each of us would have these, and then each of these questions will then, each time a community gets a question correct, they then will keep moving towards the center. So thank you for helping me because I didn't hear the question.
Let's say you should test him.
Yeah, we're all nervous. We'd like to hear the questions, but we don't want to really look like idiots. So.
It's a really good way to engage the community in a dynamic dialogue as opposed to, city officials going in and watching and learning. It's an opportunity to engage.
Very good. Thanks very much. Well
Thank
done.
you.
Mr. Chair, Council Vice President, and members of the committee, my name is Abdullahi Abdullah, and I'm currently an urban scholar with the City of Minneapolis, the Public Works Department. I'd like to introduce my team, Ayan Saeed of Greater Twin Cities United Way, and Bala Kwebli of the Department of Public Safety. We were lucky to work on a project this summer that we are very, very passionate about called Building Civic Literacy in the East African Community. And as we know, the East African community is not fully engaged in the public processes of this country and the democracy in general. And we thought we might need to leverage systems that are already in place, like utilizing the religious leaders and connecting with them as well as elders, and then providing cultural awareness programs so that the religious leaders and elders can teach their communities and the message will come from them instead of coming from the city. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
Very good. Thanks very much. Any questions or comments for this gentleman? Not seeing any. Thank you very much. Maybe you guys could play the game with them and
Yeah, definitely.
on the other side. Good.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Erika Oropesa, and I'm an urban scholar with Minneapolis Public Schools in the Office of Family, Community, and Civic Engagement. I would like to introduce my team, Brenda Compean Morales with Minneapolis Park Board and Community Outreach and Access, and Marina Campbell Vargas in the City Hall with City Clerk's Office. Today we are presenting on improving civic literacy and voter engagement in the Latinx community. In creating our recommendations, we wanted to create one for Latinx youth that are recently eligible or about to be eligible to vote. Keeping in mind the popularity of social media amongst Latinx youth, we decided to develop an application that would create a way for Latinx youth to speak with their families and community about voting and civic engagement. This application would be translated by a native speaker into Spanish and English to increase accessibility to the information.
Okay. Good. I think we have Councilmember Fry and then Council Vice President Glidden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'm hugely impressed by the presentation skills of everybody that's gone so far. You look good, you're dressed well, you're standing tall, you're smiling. I'm honestly blown away. You're doing a tremendous job. So thank you specifically for your work on voting outreach. I've been getting updates from our city clerk, and I realize you guys are doing some really good jobs. So with this application that you're talking about, does the translation, how does the translation take place? Is it you speak into the phone and then the translation takes place thereafter too? Is that how it works?
So the application would be developed by a third party that's well-versed in making applications that have dense amounts of information called Guidebook. So there would be an option in the settings of the application to have the information read in Spanish or in English.
Okay. That's great. That's really great.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Council Vice President? No? I'm just checking to see if Councilmember Johnson is looking for that app yet. And he's a little more technologically oriented than, well, than most everybody, but especially me. But thank you. Thanks very much.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Brandon Lunkley. I would like to introduce my group to you that I worked on this project with. Chris Henry works in the city clerk. Danielle Dawson also works in the city clerk. And Paige Moody working for the city assessors this summer. Our project was building cultural competency among election judges. And our recommendation was a comprehensive training plan that is focused on providing cultural customer service to help foster a more inclusive and inviting voter experience for the many diverse communities that call Minneapolis home. Thank you for your time.
Perfect. How would you go about that? Let's start with you identify each precinct would have a different set of election judges. They would have different interests and cultural competency required. How would you identify those needs in advance?
We've identified 3 paths that we can take. So one would be a facilitation path where the head and election judge get trained on the cultural customer service in terms of framing it as customer service so we can be inclusive to everybody. Also, we've inquired about a video where we would post it on the portal there and the election judges could watch it at their earliest convenience.
Oh, so something in advance. They know they're going to be an election judge, but they can look at that before they show up. So their extent of their training is not just a few minutes there with the election judge, head judge on polling day.
Yeah, so we've created multiple alleyways to address that issue.
Very good. Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Lunkley, you and I chatted a bit about this, and I'm just wondering, in situations where you're in a precinct that, let's say has a heavy population of Hmong or Somali, and the head judge is Hmong or Somali, in those situations, we're asking them to do several different things, right? We're asking them to provide their language competency, but we're asking them to be an election judge as well. And, so in those situations, how do we make it easier for those folks to actually do their jobs and do it well? And, how can we make it better for them?
I think 2 suggestions on that. One, I think we should try to find a comprehensive way to make sure that community members can serve more than one constituent in terms of speaking for them and translating for them. Also, as to your point, which we discussed, I think we need to come up with a plan where we can have election judges who are bilingual do one duty and focus on that as opposed to carrying multiple duties.
Thank you. Council Vice President, do you have in? No? Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Great.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
members of the committee, my name is James Berg, and I am currently an urban scholar with Hennepin County Central IT. I would like to start by introducing our project team, Malvern Madondo, Precious Drew, and Anna Vu. Today we are presenting our Southeast Asian Voter Outreach through Social Media project. The Southeast Asian community of Minneapolis has the opportunity for greater voter turnout in upcoming elections. We recommend initiating voter engagement through face-to-face engagement at community events and sustaining these outreach relationships through social media using our hashtag #FeelMyVote. Thank you for your time.
Great. I see tags are coming up already. So, Council Vice President Glidden, please.
All right. And just so everybody knows, I think we're trying to spread out questions just because there are a lot of presenters, but these are all just very, very interesting presentations. We know there's a lot beyond it too. But okay, you can't leave it like that.
Oh, yeah.
So why Feel My Vote?
So we chose this particular slogan for our project to emphasize the impact that voting has on the community. There could be misunderstandings about how voting doesn't really have an impact, and we want to give people the impression that it really does.
Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, when I'm thinking about, hashtag Feel My Vote, I'm just thinking about people who can speak English. But I mean, for folks who don't speak English, I mean, Feel My Vote doesn't mean anything to them, right? I mean, so what do we do about those folks?
According to the project documentation, that is not currently accounted for, but our message is communicated through the face-to-face engagement at the events. They'll be talking to real people, and the facilitators at these events will be giving out free T-shirts with our Feel My Vote slogan imprinted on them. They will have a picture taken with their T-shirt, and that will be posted on social media. And that is how the hashtag will be circulated.
So, Mr. Berg, earlier there was a game that included several cultural communities within the Southeast Asian community. So I can name, Hmong, Cambodian, Vietnamese, Lao. I mean, just 4 groups amongst many other groups, there. And I'm wondering, I mean, if you do these events or if you go on social media and, post this sort of stuff, I mean, wouldn't you need some sort of liaison of some sort that speaks the language to be able to communicate with folks, especially because I think, I mean, when I think about hashtag Feel My Vote, I mean, it certainly reaches a demographic that is young and that, speaks English and that goes to social media. But I mean, for folks who are older who, in my view, I mean, at least in the Hmong community, I mean, the older folks are actually the ones who go out and vote. I mean, how do you reach them?
It's absolutely true that social media is geared more towards the younger generation, and that is why we start with face-to-face engagement at the beginning. At those points, we hope to engage the older demographics as well as the young, and from there, maybe we can introduce them to the social media aspects that are longer sustaining.
Thank you, Councilmember. I think what we're seeing a lot of this addresses that kind of question, Councilmember Yang. We're really trying to reach out early to establish voting as a behavior in a young person. Those are the people who aren't voting at an incredibly low rate. Less than 30%, I think, is something I'd heard about youth voting who are eligible to vote. So the idea is to capture them as a young voter and have them go through and be a voter for the rest of their lives. So we really, all these social media avenues, games, these are all ways to really attract young voters to the process. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Good. Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Have you or your group done any research as to how intent expressed on social media translates into actual behavior? For example, there are events that I see. It looks like there's 500 people going to a certain event on Facebook, and I think I remember hearing on NPR some research saying that there's less than a 5% actual incident rate of people doing the behavior, even though they indicate it on some level of social media. Did you look at any of that research? Do you have any information about that? Because we don't.
We have began research on exactly that issue, but due to time constraints for getting our project together, that wasn't yet completed. However, in the project documentation, it is listed as a to-do item if the project is ever executed, so it is accounted for.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Next victim. Feeling pretty good?
Yes. Mr. Chair,
yes.
Council Vice President, members of the committee, my name is Gulet Ibrahim. I am an urban scholar with intergovernmental relations here at the City of Minneapolis. First, I'd like to start with introducing my team members. Chama Bulhan is with Council Ward Same Ward 6, City of Minneapolis, and Khalid Taib is with the Department of Revenue, State of Minnesota. Our project focuses on East African community, especially the youth, and we're focusing on using social media as an avenue to reach to the youth. And we one recommendation we came up with is the message to the youth, the East African youth, which would be in English and wouldn't be different than any other message the city will be using to target youth voters. But because the youth can be found in colleges and state universities, utilizing existing platforms or networks, such as student organizations and others who are already on social media. So the city would form partnership with these student groups and student organizations, such as the University of Minnesota, Augsburg, and Minneapolis Community College, and other colleges within the city limits to deliver the message to the youth. So we can capture the youth to vote early. We also came up with a hashtag when East African Youth Vote or Minneapolis East African Youth Vote, but that will be added to the message the city delivers to these networks and utilizing them to deliver the message.
Mm-hmm. Do you see the organization's jobs to deliver the city's message, or is it the city reaching out and asking the organizations to deliver the city's message, or which?
It's the city initiating the partnership with these student orgs. I was a member of the student orgs when I was at the University of Minnesota. So student leaders are accessible and can be beneficial to the city, but it will be the city that's crafting the message and partnering with them because they already have existing platforms. And a lot of the East African youth are on social media, such as Twitter, Facebook, or Snapchat. And the city can take advantage of that, but the message will be controlled by the city.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you. Not seeing any other questions. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Council Vice President, members of the committee. My name is Priscilla Barron Sanchez, and I'm currently an urban scholar with the Contract Compliance Division at the Department of Civil Rights. My team members are Jason Chavez Cruz with City Council 9th Ward, Fatima Garcia with the Convention Center, and Jessica Reyes at the State Management and Budget Department. After a sum of research, we found Facebook to be the most used social media platform in our community. As a result, we developed 3 recommendations to maximize our message. 1, promoting targeted Facebook ads based on location. 2, implementing a bilingual hashtag. And 3, we devised a suggested schedule of when to post and what to post based on the election timeline. We believe through these 3 efforts, we can increase Latinx voter engagement and maximize our representation. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. I have just a general question about targeting demographic through Facebook. How do you, what's the scale of that, and what's the cost of that?
We are still waiting to hear back, but I'd love to reconvene with my team and come back with a better answer for you at a later time.
Yeah, it'd be really hard to identify.
Yeah.
I wondered if how that demographic is. How many are there in the city of Minneapolis, and what would that cost be? Good. Yes, Council Vice President. Sure.
I was just curious if you were surprised that Facebook had as much reach, and if you know, what's the decision point with just going with Facebook as opposed to multiple social media venues? Is it more just being able to focus resources on the thing with the biggest impact, or it was way in ahead the biggest?
Yeah. So personally, I was surprised because I don't have a Facebook myself. I'm more of a Snapchat person.
See, I'm Facebook, and I won't tell you how much older I am than you.
But we wanted
What's this Facebook thing I heard about?
we wanted to maximize our use of existing resources, and we know that the city already has a Facebook account. And we spoke with Vanessa Hollingshead at City Clerk's office and understood the process of opening a Facebook account and that. So we wanted to be conscious of time, and we wanted to funnel our resources and any budget that we may have into the most used social media platform. But we'd love to expand.
Thanks so much.
Mr. Chair, Council Vice President, members of the committee, my name is Ramon Angeles, and I am the urban scholar at the fire department here in the city. Here with me today, I have Kafayat Akindele, who works in the Human Resources Department at the city, and also Sienna Johnson, who works with the Department of Professional Development and Office of New Schools in Minneapolis Public Schools. Unfortunately, Demetrius Young, who's with the mayor's office, could not come with us today. Today, we are presenting on the developing an Instagram account for the Elections and Voter Services Division. Our recommendation consists of two parts. Part one is creating and maintaining the follow and like base that you need on Instagram to get likes and photos out there. And also part two is establishing the framework and guidelines for the account. In the time that we have today, I would like to highlight part of part two, which is our content calendar. It would have suggestions of when to post and what to post based off of the times and when people are on Instagram the most, and as well as caption length recommendations, possible theme days to make keeping the election and voter services brand in check on the Instagram account. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Not seeing any questions. You got off easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Council Vice President, and members of the committee. My name is Umar Hassan. I am an urban scholar with the City of Minneapolis, Department of CPED in the Division of Multifamily Housing. Today with me are my group members, Isa Kibira, he's with the Minneapolis Park and Rec, Markel with Minneapolis Public Schools, and Mariah Mendoza, who unfortunately could not make it, is with the City of Minneapolis. And today we're presenting on a pop-up vote in collaboration with Minneapolis Public Schools. We intend to engage youth and families in the voting process by providing essential voting information at school events. Pop-up vote is an idea that is modeled after the Minneapolis Park and Rec pop-up parks. And pop-up vote will bring voter registration booth and information about upcoming elections and a guide to inform families about their districts and who their representatives are. Any questions?
That's very interesting. I'm really liking that. Innovative, something we've